Gentleman from South Carolina.
I want to thank the gentleman from Indiana. You know, the huge sucking sound you hear is citizens leaving the high tax, high regulatory socialist states like California. And they're going to low tax, less regulatory, more freedom-loving states like Texas and Florida and South Carolina. But guess what? With the inclusion of the SALT tax increases on my citizens is just wrong. Because as the citizens flee California, New York, and New Jersey, the services that the citizens remaining there demand and the services that have been created over the long progressive years in those states still have to be paid for. And the people with high income, very valuable property who want a tax deduction on their federal tax return for the property taxes they pay. And their property taxes are high because over the years, the progressive policies have driven the taxes up to those levels. Now they want a tax deduction for it. Who pays for that tax deduction? People in South Carolina, people in Indiana, and other states that don't have state and local tax deductions and have very common sense property taxes. So when you demand in California those services that drive up the ad valorem taxes there, and then come cry to the federal government that we need a tax break so that our citizens don't have to pay those high property taxes, they can get a tax deduction and pass that burden on to people in my state, that's wrong. And that's when we're going to push back. And you don't think that happens? It's a redistribution. You get a tax deduction, so you're not paying as much in federal taxes. That means the federal government doesn't get the revenue from those states like New Jersey and New York and California where SALT is in place. That means South Carolinians where SALT doesn't take place and have common sense taxes pay more to the federal government in revenue, or in taxes, revenue to the federal government. We pay more in taxes, you pay less. You redistributed that tax burden to us to pay for your spending like this $3.5 trillion spending bill. That's the hypocrisy. If you want to talk about hypocrisy, that's it. You don't want your citizens to have to pay for all the services that they demanded in those progressive states, but you want me to pay for it in South Carolina? Because you want to take our federal revenue, our federal taxes, and continue to spend it at these levels? And then you're going to sit over there and preach at us about complaining about the debt that's being passed on? The facts of the matter is this: the debt is high, and somebody's going to have to pay it. We're not going to pay it. The future is going to pay for our bad decisions, our spending decisions that we make today. If you look at the tax revenues, and I think Mr. Palmer was alluding to this, when you drop to a fair tax rate, revenues to the federal government go up, and it happened during the jobs creation and tax cut bill that Republicans passed. Because more money was invested, more revenue was created because there was economic activity that was taxed, both income on the private side and the corporate side, and the revenues of the federal government went up, and that is a fact that cannot be disputed, and with that, I yield back.
I yield back.